Hello, everyone. Welcome to my talk, Cloud Cost Chaos, Get Clarity with FinOps. I'm Maria Valero. This is a talk from XConf Europe by Thoughtworks, or tech conference by Technologies for Technologists. It took place the last September in Barcelona, but for everyone who could not join on site, we are repeating some of the talks. So, within the LinkedIn live webinar series, so you can catch on the XConf vibes, and hopefully we can get you excited and maybe join us in person for the next year. Personally, I really enjoyed the past XConf. Not only I got to talk about the FinOps, that is a topic that I really like, but I also got to check some really good talks about backstage, continuous deployment, and GreenOps. We'll have two more talks in this series, one about developer productivity. Unfortunately, I did not have time to check this one out, and the other about how to modernize a whole software and infrastructure stack. This one I got to assist, and it's mind blowing. I don't want to make any spoilers, but yeah, I recommend you to check it out. They will happen in the upcoming 2 days. My colleague should be putting a link on the comments if you want to check it out. By the way, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the talk, but you can write your questions in the chat and I will read them at the end. Okay, with that, we can get started. A little bit about myself. I'm Maria Valero. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a lead software developer at Thoughtworks. I have worked as a FinOps lead during the past year, and in the past, I worked as a tech lead following the FinOps team recommendations. So it's a topic that I really like, and yeah, I hope you to share my experience with you. You can find me on LinkedIn. And as you can guess from my accent, I'm from Spain, specifically from Andalusia, is the south part of Spain. Here in the picture, you can see my sister painting this olive oil bottle, the Andalusian crush. We've been painting ceramic for the past months, and it's very relaxing. So I 100% recommend it if you have never tried it. So, what we're going to talk about today is the FinOps journey, and I'm gonna be giving you recommendations throughout the journey. But we're not going to have time to make any deep dive on any specific topic. But I'll be giving you links throughout the presentation. So, if you want to deep dive, you can go and check them out. Who's this talk for? Any individual that is interested on how their cloud decisions affect and impact the cloud cost, uh, and people that work on organizations where cost is very important. Also, if you're a product or business lead that is seeking to drive a cost-effective cloud adoption, it's going to be really, really interesting for you. But like I said, if you want to talk about the details, we're not going to have time. Or if your company is not interested on cloud costs because, I don't know, you're on a startup that has a lot of funding, probably this will not be interesting for you. So for it to be easier for me to explain the FinOps journey, I'm gonna be talking about it using an example, the plant shop. Let me tell you a bit about the plant shop. So this is an e-commerce that offers products for gardening enthusiasts, so that's tools and seeds. They started 5 years ago and they're cloud native, and the business is being going really, really well. So the past months, the business has been growing a lot and they've been getting a lot of users. But unfortunately, there is another thing that has been growing a lot, and that's the cost. So for the past months, the cost has been growing a lot, and for sure the business is a bit worried about it because it can impact the profit for the business. So let's see a bit more in details what's going on at the high level. For sure, the organization is a bit more complex than this. I simplified it a bit, but you can see at a high level that the business people is giving some financial goals to the development departments, and they're expecting some outcomes from them, right? The thing is that this is not working very well. We have some problems here. On the left side, we can see that the CTO is complaining, saying, hey, we are asking teams to do their best effort to reduce costs, but cloud cost is always going up and up. Um, Actually, I see two common problems in here. One is that the goal is not very specific. The CTO is asking the teams to do their best effort, but that's difficult to measure, and it's also difficult to prioritize it. Normally, development teams have specific deadlines or specific things and goals that they need to achieve. So giving something that is not specific is going to make it very difficult for development teams to prioritize anything, because yeah, it's the best effort, no? And the other common problem here you see is that they are worried because cost is always going up. But I will say that cost always going up is not normally the problem. The problem is that you don't understand the cost. You see, here there are two things that are making the cost go up. One is that we're getting more and more users, so we need more infrastructure to support it, and that's really good. That's a really good cost. We also are increasing the cost because we are adding new features and creating new value for the users. That's also good, but it's also making the cost go up. And we are only having these small initiatives that are trying to make the cost go up. But if you see, there are two things that are making the cost go up, and one small thing that is making the cost go down. So for sure, it's just normal that the cost is going up. But like I said, cost going up is not the problem. The problem is that you don't understand it, and it's a surprise at the end of the month what the cloud cost is going to be. We also have the CFO that they want to understand what's going on a bit better and reduce cloud costs. The thing is that they don't understand it. They probably they will look at the bill of the cloud, and they won't understand what's the cost of anything. They will see like the cost of virtual machines and network, but this is a language that they don't understand. It's too technical for them. So I have seen that some people in finance are even scared of all these cloud costs, because it's very it's too much engineering for them. We not only have problems on the left side, we also have problems on the right side. We see that the product owner is focused on a deadline that is happening in 2 weeks. So he wants to focus on delivery, and they don't see this goal as their own. If you see, they're focusing on another goal. They might even be fighting against this goal because they want the time, development time, to be focused on this delivery and not on reducing cost. We also see the developer that maybe they see this goal as their own, but they might not have enough knowledge or enough visibility on cloud costs to do anything really. It's the first time that they're doing this, so they'll probably not have enough information and enough training. And at the end of the day, they may think that this is the work of the DevOps team, because they should have enough information. And then we have the DevOps SRE or platform team that they might actually do some things, and they can do some tasks to reduce costs. But the thing is that not everything can be done by the platform team. Imagine there is some legacy systems that are costing a lot of money, and there is some development work that needs to be done to fully remove them and remove all those resources. But you see, the platform team on its own, they cannot make all these changes, and they cannot remove them without this development work. So they need support, and they need to collaborate with developers to actually reduce all this cost. If you see this state, everyone is trying to do their best, but nothing really is coming out of it. So this is what I would call the chaos state. Fortunately for the plant shop, they have someone in the company that they have heard about FinOps, and they want to bring the principles and practices to help with the collaboration. And this is going to be us. For the presentation, we're going to be the FinOps driver of the plant shop. Just for the example, we're going to say that we are the cloud architect, but we could have different roles. We could be, I don't know, from the platform team or from the finance team. It could be really anyone in the company that wants to bring all these practices to the business. So what we'll do is help the two sides. On the left side, we're going to help them creating meaningful data. So we give them cloud cost data that is meaningful for the business, that is not technical, and they so what we want is for them to understand all these cloud costs and have a same language, create the same language, so we can talk about cost in the same way. And what we want to is talk to business and finance and get the constraints and the goals so they are specific, and this will help us prioritize initiatives in the development team. On the right side, we want to help them also giving them metrics so they can understand the impact of their decisions in the cloud cost. We want to give them all the goals and constraints so we make sure that the expectations are clear. And we also want to help them out, train them, guide them, because this is the first time that they are working on this project, so they're going to need help. Cool. So with this, we start our FinOps journey. It's going to start in this chaos state, and we are going to start crawling by increasing the visibility and reducing the cloud cost. Once we reach this point, we're going to continue improving our practice. We're going to develop more and more capabilities that bring more and more value to the business until we reach a point where we are working in our practice. And at the end, we will continue starting to run. And we'll do this by creating this FinOps culture. So making FinOps part of the culture for everyone that is making a cloud decision and is impacting this cost. Cool. So let's start our journey. We're starting to crawl. And the first thing that you should know if you're starting your FinOps journey is for sure what FinOps means. This is the definition from the FinOps Foundation. And it says FinOps is an operational framework and cultural practice. You see, this is very important because it means that it's about how we work, how we're working when we are taking cloud decisions, right? And when we are working with the cloud. Next one, which maximizes the business value of cloud. This is very important, so I'm going to underline it. You see, FinOps is not about reducing cost, and I think this is a common misconception. It's about maximizing the business value. Like I said before, it's okay if cost is going up, because cost just by itself, it doesn't mean anything. But what you want is that for what you are paying for this cost, you want the maximum business value. And what is not okay is that if we are not creating much business value, but we are paying a lot. And that's what should worry us, not the cost going up. And we'll do this by enabling timely data-driven decision making and creating financial accountability. You see, decision making is very, very important, and doing it using data-driven, being data-driven. So we're making decisions, and we understand how it will impact the cost. But it's a decision that we're taking, this cost increase. And for sure, we want accountability, so people is accountable for the cost of their infrastructure. And we'll do this through collaboration between engineering, finance, and the business teams. If you see in FinOps is all about collaboration, and this is needed for it to work. Okay, so let's go back. We are starting to crawl, and there are two main goals that we want to focus on. The first one is optimizing the cost. We know that the plan shop is on the cost is big going up, so it's very important for the business that we reduce the cloud cost. And the second thing that we should focus on, and is very important, is to start creating this language with the business. So we speak the same terms, and we'll do this by using cost allocation. So we'll be allocating the cost to specific categories that we define with the business. Okay, so let's start with the first one, optimizing cost. My recommendation is to first find your biggest cost areas. Probably that's going to be the biggest cost decrease that you can get. So for our case, for the plan shop, we see observability, that we're using huge Elasticsearch machines, storing logs. We have high costs during non-peak hours, and we also have some virtual machines that are always running. So maybe you can get a discount on that. And the second part is that define what do we need to do, define the initiatives to reduce the cost. So for observability, what we see is that if instead of saving so many logs, we start using metrics, using Grafana, Prometheus, and saving metrics. So instead of needing to save so many logs, we can just save some metrics. It will reduce the cost a lot, and not only will reduce the cost, but it will also improve the observability, because we, you know, having a dashboard and just looking at the dashboard, we can see the state of our application. While if we have many logs, you have to read many logs and go through, I don't know, thousands of logs to see the state of your application. So this will reduce cost and observability. And we also have the high cost during non-peak hours. This is easy. We can set up some of scalability with workload optimization. And for the virtual machines that are always running, we can get some rate optimization. We can go to the cloud provider and commit to pay for those machines for a year, and they will give us a discount. So once we have our plan, what is left is implement it. Uh, what I would recommend you to do is prioritize it, but delegate it to teams, because we still don't have a FinOps team, and it's good also for the teams to be accountable and to participate on these initiatives. So we can delegate it to them, help them prioritize, and support them all that we can, and they can be doing it. Uh, in case you're doing this cost this plan to optimize cost, just I wanted to show you this graph. This is from the State of FinOps survey, and it's the current FinOps practitioner key priorities. And if you see what people replied to this, is the top two things that people replied are related to cost optimization. The first one is reducing waste or unused resources. This is, for example, like I said, if you have a legacy system, or if you have some resources for a POC that you did some time ago, just remove it. These are probably the most costly resources, because they are bringing no value or very little value to the business. So just find out about these resources and remove them. That's the biggest cost reduction that you can do. And the second one is managing commitment based discounts. This is about getting a saving plan. And one thing that I want to tell you here, in the past, I was on a team and we got a saving plan for some databases. And you know, in the middle of the year, we had to actually scale the machine because it was very small for all the data we were saving. And actually, at the end of the year, we had to pay for these resources, but we were not using them. So I would say, if you're going to get a saving plan, just think that a year is a lot of time. And if your business is quite stable, then go for it. It's going to save you money. But if your business is not stable and is growing a lot, just think about it, because maybe in the middle of the year, you're not going to need these resources. Okay, so let's focus on the second goal that we had. If you remember, cost allocation. What we want to do is to start creating this language that we can speak with business. If you have heard of domain-driven design and ubiquitous language, this is similar. This is very similar. We want to create a language that we can use to communicate, but related to cost, right? So the first thing that I would recommend you to do is to sit together with business and find out what are the relevant cost centers for the business. For our case, for the plant shop, they told us that team is a cost center that they already use, and environment too. Team, because they already allocate salaries, the laptop cost, and environment, because it's important for them to understand what's the cost of production and what's the cost for development. So once we have these two cost centers, what we need to do is to find out how we are going to allocate the cost to these cost centers. And we're going to do this by using tags and accounts. So this is a trade-off. You see, with accounts, you can fully split the cost, because you are going to create an account and put all the resources in there and allocate all those resources to a specific cost center. The thing is that it takes a bit more effort. It's more difficult to change, and also for work with one resource or another, you will have to be changing accounts. On the other side, tags are easier to change, and they are more simple to add. But on the downside, you cannot tag everything. You will not be able to reach 100% allocation with tags, because there are some specific actions that you can do with cloud providers. Like, for example, if you're saving some metrics and you are making a search on it, uh, you are not going to be able to tag these searches, but probably the cloud provider is going to charge you for searching on their system. So, like I said, this is a trade off. Specifically for the plan shop, what we're going to do is add a tag for app. This is because in the plan shop, uh, each application is owned by two or more teams. So what we're going to do is tag the application, and then we're going to share the cost between the different teams. So we're going to split the cost of that application for each team that is working on it. And for environment, we're actually going to create an environment per account. We're going to say that this is already done. This is how the plan shop works. They have an environment, uh, an account per environment for security reasons. So this is already done. And now that we have our plan, what is left always is implementation. What I would recommend is to give this project to the platform team. Same as before, we still don't have a FinOps team, so it's better to delegate it, give them the responsibility and accountability, support them all that we can, and yeah, ask them to add this app tag to every resource. Cool. So now we finish our project, our first FinOps project, and what we need to do is actually prepare a showcase for the business. And what we go there with this graph, and we're showing that the cost is going down. We not only show this, but we can also show how much is the cost per team. But you see here, we still don't fully understand the cost, because we're seeing that, yeah, the green team has the biggest cost, but we don't know which team is the one that can reduce their cost the most, because it could happen that the green team is bringing a lot of business value, but the yellow team has some legacy that could be removed, and maybe the yellow team is the one that can reduce their cost the most. And we don't know this yet. We still need to find out a bit more about cost to fully understand it. But we go there with this, and actually the CTO and the CFO, they're quite happy because they can see that the cost is going down. And the developers are very happy too, because now they're aware of what are the biggest areas where they can reduce the cost. But you see here, there is a big, big danger. And the danger is that we stop here, because now the cost is reduced, everyone is happy, let's stop, that's it, no, let's close it. But you see, with this project, we didn't make FinOps part of the culture. We didn't make it part of how we work. So we're still making decisions without taking cost into consideration. So it's just normal that in a few months, cost is going to go up. Even next month, cost is going to go up. So we need to continue this FinOps initiative. So we end up making this FinOps part of the culture of the company. And not only that, but we make costs not to be a surprise at the end of the month. Because, like I said before, the problem is not that cost increases. The problem is that we don't understand it. We don't understand why is this cost increase, and at the end of the month, this is a surprise, whatever number it is. Uh, and for us, this should not be a surprise. We should have some forecast about what this number is going to be and act on it if we need to act on it. But if it's expected, and it's just because there was some users increase, then we don't need to act on it, and we're good. But we know that we are good even though the cost increase. So let's say that we got to continue our FinOps practice. The business is quite happy with us, so we can start to work. And what we need to do when we're starting to work is to continue developing our FinOps capabilities. For this, I would say it's a really good point where you can check out the FinOps framework. If you want more details, go to finops.org/framework. The FinOps Foundation defines four domains for FinOps. One is understand cloud usage and cost, quantify business value, optimize cloud usage and cost, and manage the FinOps practice. And they not only define these domains, but they define capabilities for each domain. And don't get scared here, it's many capabilities, but we have already seen some of them. So, if you remember, on the left side, allocation, we have already seen it. We have already started our cost allocation. And on the right side, we have uh, optimized cloud usage and cost. And we have already done this too. So we should have these capabilities developed already. The FinOps framework not only defines all these domains and capabilities, they also define the maturity, what it means to mature on each of these capabilities. So for each capability, it is defining what it means to crawl, to walk, and to run. If you see, I've been using this for the whole FinOps journey. This is because I wanted to make it, FinOps theme, but the actual FinOps framework is using it per capability, not at a high level. Okay, so what we need to do is create our plan. First step that we should do is to analyze the current and the future state to meet the company goals. So for each of these capabilities, I would recommend to go check them out, seeing which state you are currently, and from the goal of your business of the company, find out what should be the future state to support these goals. Let's say that the main goal of the business or the main goal related to FinOps is increase cloud cost visibility. So what we'll do is see what should be this future state. And then as a second step, you should define your goals and initiatives to actually get to this point and have the priorities. For the plan shop, let's say that we want to improve on the capabilities, unit economics, and forecasting. And we should define our initiatives and our goals. I didn't put all that here, but you should be defining it. And as always, once you have your plan, what you should be doing is implementing it. And I will say here is a good point where you can create your FinOps team, because you're going to start creating tools and you're going to start to own and growth all your knowledge. And also it's a really good point where you can get your team. Only because we are having initiatives in the plant shop, we're having initiatives that are very very data intensive. Also, it would be good to have a data engineer, but we could also have someone from platform team. We could have someone from finance, a project manager. There are many different roles that can support the FinOps initiative, and that will be a really good addition for the FinOps team. So once we have our plan and we're working on it, what is left is iterate and improve. There is another thing that the FinOps framework defines, and that's the phases: inform, optimize, and operate. They recommend you to do all these phases so you don't forget about any of the domains. So the inform phase is about understand usage and cost and quantify business value. Optimize is about cost optimization, and operate is about managing your FinOps practice. This is really important. So even though, if you only spend a bit of time in managing your FinOps practice, all the domains are very important for the FinOps initiative, and you should spend at least some time on these domains to start developing them. Cool. So we are finishing. We need to prepare our showcase again, and we go to the meeting with this cost, and we actually see that cost is increasing. But you see, now we are not too worried because we understand cost a bit better. We develop our unit economics, and unit economics, what it does is to define the cost for a unit of your business. So this is finding out what's the main cost driver for your cost, and find out what's the cost per this unit, per this cost driver. As an example, for the plan shop, we'll say that the main driver for the cost is the page views. And we comparing it with the cost, we actually see that the unit cost is been decreasing. So even though cost has been increasing, the unit cost has been decreasing. So I would say that the team is doing a really good job decreasing the cost of the infrastructure, and that we are getting more and more page views because cost is increasing still. The CTO is quite happy because now they can understand the driver of the cost, and they can understand that this cost increase is good, it's actually really good. And the CFO is actually quite happy too, because not only we see this unit cost, but we can forecast what's going to be the cost for the next month. So now you see cost is not a surprise anymore. Even though forecast can have some error, um, we we can calculate it and we can predict how much it will be. So, like I said, we can be prepared for the future, and if we need to act on it because we see the unit economy is increasing, we can act on it. But if this is okay, this is a decision, this is expected, we can just be happy about it. um, okay, so everyone is very happy with the FinOps initiative. We are continuing, but what is left? No, we already developed many of our capabilities. What do we need to say that we are running our FinOps, maturing our FinOps? I would say that the key for fully maturing your FinOps initiative is on the definition of FinOps. So let's go back to the definition of FinOps. And it said, if you remember, FinOps is an operational framework and cultural practice. And for me, this is the key for maturing your FinOps, making it part of your culture. And this is because everyone is actually impacting the cloud cost. So the FinOps activities should not only be done by the FinOps team. Every persona that is involved in using, tracking, managing, or directing the use of cloud will benefit from working together and will benefit from following the FinOps framework and having this operating model. And how can we get to this point? Well, there is a full domain from FinOps that is dedicated to this, the managing your FinOps practice. But specifically, there is one capability that I think is key to create this culture, and that's governance. So I'm going to talk a bit more about it. So there are two things that you need to do to, to create this governance. One is to define the constraints. The constraints are very helpful because they align people and they set the expectations, so everyone knows what is expected. And the second thing that you should do is to create a decision making process. You see, this is very, very important to create the culture, because when you ask people to follow this process and take cloud cost into consideration and do this practice, by starting to make this practice and to follow this practice, people will already start thinking about cost because they are asked to think about cost, so they will do it. And by doing this, they will start changing their minds. So you see, creating practices is the best way to change people's mind, because they will start doing it and they will start seeing the value and they will start considering it. Okay, so there are these two things that we need to do, but again, there is a big danger here, and the danger is to make a bureaucratic process that no one wants to follow, and make everyone in the company hate us. For sure, we want to avoid it. What we want is a governance that will not block teams. Teams nowadays are asked to be agile, and our governance process should also be agile, so we don't block teams. This is what we call lightweight governance. If you want to read a bit more about it, you can check out the book Edge. And how are we going to do constraints and decision making is, for constraints, we're going to define a cross-functional requirement map. And for decision making, we're going to do an appropriate delegation of decision rights and accountability. And I'm going to explain it a bit more in detail. 1 second. Okay. So let's create this cross-functional requirement map. On the left side, we have the stakeholders. On the top side, we'll put the characteristic. One thing here, I will use one of these two. You see, for companies that are very stable, that their cost is very, very stable, you can use budget. But for companies that you see, for example, an e-commerce that have a days like Black Friday, in those times, cost will increase a lot. So if you see, the cost per month is not very stable. And in a team like this, in Black Friday, every team will have a higher cost and they will go over budget, but it doesn't make sense because it's Black Friday and it's just expected and it's good that their cost is going up. So for these companies where cost is not stable and it changes a lot month to month, I would say just focus on the unit cost and you can put the unit cost limit. So once you decide that, what you need to do is fill this table, and to fill this table, I'll say you should consider the type of software that you have. So there is software that is more strategic and software that is more utility. So the strategic software uh, brings differentiation to your company. So it's why the users are using your company. It's software that is really bringing value to the users and is bringing new users. And for this software, you want to focus more on speed and inventiveness. But on the other hand, there is more utility software, that you're expected to have it and you have to have it, but it's not really bringing new users. Like, for example, users will not use your company because you have a login system. It's just expected that they can log in. So for this software that is not really differentiating you from other companies, I'll say you should focus on cost and avoiding disaster. If you want to hear more about it, you can check out the Martin Fowler talk. What does tech excellence look like? For our plant shop example, we say that the advertisement domain is strategic because it's bringing new businesses and it's bringing a lot of money from other businesses. And we'll say that the wishlist domain is more of a utility because sure, users want this wishlist, but they're not choosing our software because it has a wishlist. It's not a big differentiator. So we want to focus on cost and avoiding disaster. Once we have this, we'll fill our table and we'll have our constraints created. Now let's focus on the decision making. So, like I said, we want a decision making process that is lightweight. And how can we do it? I recommend you to check this talk from Andrew Harmerlow. Like I said before, this is one of the topics that I don't have time to deep dive on it. Uh, so check out the talk if you're interested. Normally on a product team, when a decision is required, you will do some options, trade-offs, and the decision will be taken and shared, and then the decision will be implemented. And for these options and trade-offs and taking the decision, there are different ways how you can do it, right? It can be more centralized, it can be more decentralized, and within those two, there are different flavors. Uh, but if you remember, we want it to be lightweight. So, what Andrew Harmerlow recommends and what I recommend too for making this more lightweight is that anyone can make any decision. This way, you're not blocking teams. But if you only take this part of the sentence, there is the danger that they will make decisions without having the full context. So that's why Andrew is adding this part. Um, but before doing so, they must seek advice from all affected parties and people with expertise in the matter. So you make sure that they can make any decision, but they need to be aware of all the information and they need to involve the people related to this. So how this will look like is this: the product team will still need to make a decision and they can do the options and trade-offs, but they have the support of all the affected parties and people with expertise. On our case, if it's a decision related to cloud, they will have the support of FinOps. And after they have all the information, they can take the decision, share it, and implement it. So now we reach, we have a really mature team. So at this point, I will expect that probably we are not doing showcases. Teams are doing showcases because they own their cost. So what we do is actually support the teams with all the capabilities and all the tools that we developed. So the teams will be using these capabilities and they will be accountable for taking cloud decisions, cloud cost decisions, but the FinOps team, will be responsible for facilitating all the capabilities for managing cost. And that's it for the talk. Just two takeaways before you go. Well, before we start the Q&A, actually. If you're starting your FinOps journey, make cloud costs meaningful for the business. Like I said before, uh, cost increasing is not a problem. The problem is when you don't understand the cost. So make sure that you understand the cost and that the business is understanding this cost. And if you are mature in your FinOps practice, make sure that FinOps is part of your culture. Thank you. By the way, this talk will be available on LinkedIn. Now we are going to start the Q&A. I think my colleague might send the link in the chat for the XConf Europe playlist if you want to check it, to check out other talks. I'm going to check the questions. So what strategy do you use to choose from the huge variety of tools available in the market, considering not every organization has a FinOps team? I'm guessing you're talking about tools to find out about the cost, right? I will say this is probably a trade-off too. It depends a lot on the structure. I mean, the infrastructure that you have, uh, what you are looking for. There are many cloud providers that they already provide a lot of useful tools and that they are mostly free. So I would say just create a trade-off. What I would do normally is do what is called an ADR, so an architectural decision record, and I will compare the different options. I will write down what I want, what I'm looking for, and then just compare the different tools and take a decision. The ADR is good because then you'll have a record about why you took that decision, and if in the future you want to change the decision and just use a different tool, you can go back to the ADR and update it or create a new one. And there is a second question. How do you account for development time, learning curve, and maintenance of a cost-saving technology implementation? This is a good question. I will say, I guess you're meaning because it's many things, no? That is about the question. How do you account about development time? I guess development time that will take to reduce this cost to implement these initiatives. Uh, so if we're talking about the first scenario when we are starting our FinOps and we are creating these initiatives and giving them to teams, I would say that we can collaborate or we should collaborate with the team, explain them all that needs to be done. They will probably be able to estimate on their own what should be the development time that it will take. So I'll say for that, collaborate with the teams. About the learning curve, uh, I would say this FinOps is or increasing the culture is something that will happen little by little. You'll be giving them probably showing them the cost, and then you will start creating these constraints that they need to meet. And I will say that little by little, teams will feel the need to learn, and you'll be providing them all the resources. So, about the learning curve, I would say it will happen. It will not be fast for sure. It will happen little by little while they are doing all these initiatives. But I cannot estimate how much. Probably will be even be different for every team, and you can check how they are doing in their cost, with their cost, and if they're meeting their constraints, and ask them if they need more support on that. And about the maintenance of a cost saving technology implementation. I guess you mean the decision making maintenance. Oh, or maintaining the thing that you made for saving cost. I will say normally, I mean, you make a change in the system and you always need to maintain the system. So I don't think it changes much the maintenance because it's a system that you're still maintaining, right? So I don't think it will impact much the cost on maintenance. There is another question. Who do you think should be in a FinOps team? And thank you for the talk. Thank you for joining the talk. Um, I will say it depends on the initiatives that you have. For sure, if it's very data intensive, like I said, get a data engineer. I will love to have like if I have I will be if I'm creating a FinOps team, I would love to have a project manager because in my experience, it's always good to have a product manager to when you're creating a product because you're creating all these capabilities and everyone in the company using these capabilities is your customer. So it's really good to have someone that is managing the project and that is managing the product, sorry, and that is helping the team prioritize the initiatives. So I would say product manager is should be really really good for the team. For sure, someone from the platform team with knowledge about cloud, and someone from finance will be really good if you want to get more support on this area for defining the initiatives. A developer too, if you are developing some tools, that will be good too. It could be different and it depends a lot on your specific case. Okay, and I think that's it for the questions. Du-du-du. So again, thank you everyone for joining the talk. Like I said, this talk is going to be available on LinkedIn and on the XConf Europe playlist. I think my colleague sent the link on the chat or is sending it. And I hope to get you excited on the XConf and get you a bit of these XConf vibes. And we hope to see you on the XConf Europe in 2025. Thank you.